Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab for more stories. Now let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Architect. Bradford DeLeon lived his life like he designed his games, 3 moves ahead of everyone else. At 34, he built Stratagem Studios from a garage startup into a $20 million company that revolutionized strategy gaming. His flagship title, Byzantine, wasn't just a game. It was a psychological warfare simulator that the military used for tactical training. Players didn't just move pieces on a board. They manipulated entire systems, turning enemies' strengths into fatal weaknesses. The irony wasn't lost on him now. His corner office overlooked downtown Seattle, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Space Needle like a chess piece on a board. Bradford stood there most mornings with his coffee, watching the city wake up, calculating market trends, competitor moves, investor psychology. Everything was a pattern. Everything had a counter-strategy. Except his marriage. He'd met Veronica Rubio 4 years ago at a tech conference in San Francisco. She was a marketing consultant, sharp, beautiful, with ambition that matched his own. Or so he thought. Dark hair, darker eyes, a smile that could disarm venture capitalists and close deals he couldn't. She'd pitched herself as his perfect counterpart. He built the vision. She sold it to the world. Their wedding was featured in Seattle Business Monthly. Power couple redefined success. The photo showed them on the deck of his Lake Washington home, both wearing white, both smiling like they'd won something. Looking back, Bradford realized that was the last time Veronica had looked at him like he was worth winning. "Boss, you got a minute?" Kendrick Hawkins appeared in his doorway, Bradford's head of development and closest friend since MIT. Kendrick was everything Bradford wasn't: loud, irreverent, covered in tattoos that told the story of a childhood in Detroit that could have gone either way. "The investors are asking about the Q4 projections again. Tell them what I always tell them. Trust the process." Bradford turned from the window, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We launch Byzantine, Shadow Protocol in 6 weeks. It'll print money. You okay, man?" Kendrick closed the door, his expression shifting from professional to concerned. "You've been off lately. Just tired." The lie came easily. Bradford had become good at lying to himself, too. "Veronica's been planning this big charity gala. You know how she gets." "Yeah, I know how she gets." Something in Kendrick's tone made Bradford look up sharply, but his friend just shrugged. "You working late tonight?" "Probably." "Why?" "Because you've worked late every night this week. And the week before." "Man, when's the last time you actually went home before midnight?" Bradford didn't have an answer. The truth was, he'd been avoiding home. The house on Lake Washington, the one he'd bought and renovated, the one Veronica filled with expensive art and designer furniture, felt empty even when she was there. Especially when she was there. She'd grown distant over the past 8 months. Distracted. Her phone was always face down on tables. She took calls in other rooms. Her business trips multiplied. When he held her at night, she felt like a stranger wearing his wife's skin. But Bradford was nothing if not analytical. He'd started documenting the changes, tracking patterns like he was debugging code. The credit card statements he wasn't supposed to see. The hotel charges in cities where she claimed to be staying with friends. The new lingerie that never appeared when they were together. The rare times they were together. He'd hired a private investigator 3 weeks ago. Not because he wanted proof, but because he needed data. Facts. Evidence to either confirm his paranoia or free him from it. The manila envelope sat in his desk drawer, unopened. The investigator had called yesterday. "Mr. DeLeon, you'll want to see this in person. Can we meet?" Bradford had said no. Not yet. He wasn't ready for the game to change. "I'll head home at a reasonable hour," he told Kendrick, another lie. "Promise." After Kendrick left, Bradford pulled out his phone and scrolled through Veronica's Instagram. She'd posted that morning a photo of her morning latte with the caption, "Self-Care Sunday, starts early hot beverage, sparkles." The location tag said their home. But her car hadn't been in the garage when he left at 5 a.m. He knew because he'd checked. Bradford opened his desk drawer and stared at the manila envelope. The investigator's number was written on the outside in neat block letters, along with a note. "I'm sorry, Mr. DeLeon. People only apologized before delivering bad news." He grabbed the envelope and his keys. Kendrick was right. He'd been avoiding home for too long. Whatever was in this envelope, whatever truth waited for him, he'd face it head on. That's what he did. He solved problems. He found optimal solutions. His phone buzzed with a text from Veronica. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Red heart. The heart emoji felt like a taunt. Bradford left the office at 4 p.m., earlier than he had in months. The drive to Lake Washington usually calmed him, watching the city transition to water and trees, but today his hands gripped the steering wheel white-knuckled. He pulled into his driveway at 4:47 p.m. and sat in his car for 3 minutes, opening the manila envelope. The first photo showed Veronica at a restaurant, leaning across a table toward a man. The second showed them leaving together, his hand on her lower back. The third showed them entering a hotel. The fourth photo showed the man's face clearly. Rico Strong. Bradford knew him, not personally, but by reputation. A real estate developer with a taste for expensive cars and other men's wives. 42 years old, divorced twice, currently being investigated by the SEC for securities fraud. The kind of man who wore success like cologne but left destruction in his wake. The investigator's report was thorough. Subject and Mr. Strong have maintained this relationship for approximately 7 months. Hotel receipts attached. They've become increasingly careless in recent weeks, meeting at the Lake Washington residence when they believe Mr. DeLeon is at work. The words hit Bradford like ice water. Lake Washington residence. His home. His fucking home. He looked at his house, really looked at it, and saw Veronica's car parked in the garage next to an unfamiliar silver Mercedes. Rico Strong drove a silver Mercedes. Bradford checked the time, 4:52 p.m. Veronica thought he'd be at work until midnight. She'd gotten careless. Or maybe she'd stopped caring whether he found out. The smart play would be to call his lawyer. Document everything. File for divorce. Stratagem Studios had a prenup. Veronica would walk away with almost nothing. He'd win cleanly, legally, completely. But as Bradford sat in his car, staring at his home invaded by another man, he realized he didn't want a legal victory. He wanted something more. Bradford grabbed his phone and pulled up his brother's contact. Marcus DeLeon. They hadn't spoken in 6 months. Marcus was deployed somewhere he couldn't talk about, doing things he couldn't describe. Delta Force operators lived in shadows. The call went to voicemail. Marcus, it's Bradford. Call me when you can. It's important. He ended the call and stepped out of his car. The manila envelope sat on the passenger seat, evidence of betrayal documented in glossy prints. But Bradford left it there. He didn't need evidence anymore. He needed to see it with his own eyes. Chapter 2. The Bishop and the Pawn. Bradford entered his house through the front door. His house, his door, his keys turning in his locks, and the first thing he heard was laughter. Her laughter. Veronica's voice drifted from upstairs, warm and genuine in a way he hadn't heard in years. God, I needed this. He's been so clingy lately. Like he senses something. Maybe he does. A man's voice. Deep, smug. Rico Strong. Maybe that's why he works those pathetic hours. Trying to prove he's still got it. More laughter. Bradford? He's got nothing. Just his little video games and his spreadsheets. Do you know what he did for our anniversary? Made me a PowerPoint presentation about our relationship metrics. Who does that? A fucking robot. Rico's voice was closer now, intimate. But you're here now. Forget about him. Bradford stood in his foyer, briefcase still in hand, listening to his wife mock him with her lover in the bedroom they'd shared for 4 years. The bedroom he'd carried her into on their wedding night. The bedroom where he'd held her through her father's funeral, where they'd talked about having children someday. That bedroom was 30 feet above his head, and inside it, his marriage was being laughed to death. He should have felt rage, humiliation. Instead, he felt the same cool clarity that descended when he was debugging code or designing a level. The moment when chaos became patterns, problems became solutions. Bradford set down his briefcase silently and moved through his house like a ghost. The living room was pristine. Veronica insisted on weekly cleaning services. The kitchen was spotless. Everything looked perfect on the surface, just like his marriage had looked perfect on magazine covers. He climbed the stairs without a sound, years of careful footfalls from childhood games with Marcus serving him now. The master bedroom door was ajar, slanting afternoon light cutting across hardwood floors. Bradford pushed it open. They were on the bed, his sheets, his wife, and they didn't see him at first. Veronica was wearing red lingerie he'd never seen before. Rico Strong was everything the photos suggested. Tall, athletic, the kind of man who looked like he'd never failed at anything. Veronica, Bradford said quietly. She screamed and scrambled back. Rico jumped up, grabbing for his pants. For a frozen moment, the three of them formed a perfect triangle. Husband, wife, lover, and Bradford had the absurd thought that it looked like a scene from one of his games. Bradford. Veronica's face cycled through expressions: shock, fear, calculation, anger. She settled on anger. What the hell are you doing home? The audacity of the question almost made him laugh. I live here. This isn't what it looks like. Don't. Bradford's voice was calm, almost gentle. Just don't. Rico had his pants on now, and he stepped forward with the kind of aggressive posturing Bradford expected. Look, man, this is awkward. You're in my house. In my bedroom. In my bed. With my wife. Bradford's eyes never left Veronica. Which part is awkward exactly? Bradford, please. Veronica had wrapped herself in a sheet now, and tears were starting. Practiced, perfect tears that had worked on him before. It's not what you think. Rico and I, we're just what? Just fucking? Just destroying our marriage? Just making a fool of me. He took a step into the room. Which charitable interpretation should I choose? Rico moved between them, and Bradford finally looked at him. Really looked at him. Up close, Rico Strong was impressive. 6'2", easily 200 pounds of muscle, with the kind of confidence that came from always winning. You need to leave, Rico said. Before this gets ugly. Bradford almost admired the sheer balls of it. I need to leave? From my own house. Brad, don't do this, Veronica started. Don't call me Brad. You lost that privilege about 7 months ago. That's how long this has been going on, right? He pulled out his phone, showing the investigator's report. Or should I say, how long you've been careless enough to get caught. Veronica's face went pale. Rico's jaw clenched. Yeah, I know everything, Bradford continued. Hotels, restaurants, my house while I'm at work. You even used our anniversary weekend when I was in Tokyo. The Marina Bay Sands, right? I paid for that trip. Did you laugh about that too? You had us followed? Veronica's tears were gone now, replaced by cold fury. You paranoid asshole. Paranoid. Bradford tested the word. Interesting choice. Because paranoia implies irrational fear. But I'm standing in our bedroom looking at you in lingerie I've never seen, with a man I've never met, in our bed. That's not paranoia. That's evidence. Rico took another step forward. Okay, you've had your moment. You caught us. Congrats. Now man up and walk away before you embarrass yourself more. Man up. Bradford nodded slowly. Interesting advice from a man who's facing SEC fraud charges. How much did you steal, Rico? 8 million? 10. Rico's expression darkened. You don't know shit about me. I know you're about to lose everything. Your company, your money, maybe your freedom. Bradford smiled without warmth. Is that why you're here? Dating a tech executive's wife? Hoping for what? Access to my accounts. Business opportunities? Bradford, that's insane, Veronica tried. Is it? Because here's what's interesting. Bradford pulled out his phone again, scrolling through emails. 3 months ago, you asked me to invest in Rico's development project in Bellevue. 2 months ago, you wanted me to introduce him to my venture capital contacts. Last month, you suggested merging his company with mine. He looked up at Rico. What's the con exactly? Marry the wife, steal the business. The silence that followed was broken only by Rico's breathing, which had gotten heavier. Fuck this, Rico said finally. I'm done with this suburban drama bullshit. He moved toward the door, and Bradford stepped aside to let him pass. But as Rico walked by, Bradford spoke quietly. You should leave town, Rico. Tonight. Take whatever money you have left and disappear. Rico stopped. Is that a threat? It's advice. Free of charge. Bradford's smile was genuine now. Because if you don't leave, what happens next won't be a conversation. For a moment, Rico looked like he might take a swing. Bradford almost hoped he would. It would simplify things. But Rico just laughed, a harsh sound without humor. Your wife told me you were a pussy. She was right. He looked back at Veronica. Baby, call me when you're done with this fucking loser. He left. Bradford heard his footsteps on the stairs, the front door opening and closing. The Mercedes started, pulled out of the driveway. And then it was just Bradford and Veronica, alone in the wreckage of their marriage. Bradford, please. Veronica was crying again, real tears this time. I made a mistake. I was lonely. You work so much, and I needed someone to see me. I saw you, Bradford said quietly. Every day? Every moment. You're all I saw. Then why didn't you fight for me? Her voice broke. Why didn't you try to keep me? The question hung between them, and Bradford realized she genuinely didn't understand. She thought this was about effort, attention, romance. She thought their marriage had failed because he hadn't tried hard enough. She didn't understand that she'd made a choice, that actions had consequences. Get dressed, Bradford said finally. Pack some things. You can stay at a hotel tonight. Tomorrow, we'll start divorce proceedings. You can't just kick me out. This is my house. My name is on the deed. The prenup is very clear about infidelity. He turned toward the door. Be gone in an hour, Veronica, or I'll have you removed. You fucking bastard. She lunged at him, nails aimed at his face, and Bradford caught her wrists easily. Years of martial arts training with Marcus, another thing she'd mocked him for, paid off. Don't, he said softly, and something in his voice made her freeze. Just don't. He released her and walked out, pulling the door closed behind him. His hands were shaking, but not from fear or anger. From relief. The waiting was over. The suspicion was confirmed. The game had entered a new phase. Bradford went downstairs to his study, the one room in the house that was entirely his, that Veronica never entered. He poured himself a scotch, expensive single malt that tasted like smoke and regret, and sat at his desk. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Mr. DeLeon? It's Glenn Suarez. We went to school together? I heard you might need a good divorce attorney. Bradford almost laughed. Of course. The private investigator had recommended him. That was fast. I've handled cases like yours before. High net worth individuals, prenuptial agreements, evidence of infidelity. I can protect you. Send me your retainer agreement. After he hung up, Bradford opened his laptop and started drafting an email to his board of directors. Veronica was officially the VP of marketing at Stratagem Studios, a position he'd created for her that she'd barely filled. By tomorrow, she'd be unemployed too. His phone rang again. This time, the number was familiar. Marcus, Bradford answered. Thanks for calling back. Brad, what's wrong? You never call unless. I found Veronica with another man. In our bed. At our house. Silence. Then, Jesus Christ. Are you okay? I'm fine. I'm handling it. Divorce attorney, restraining order, the usual. Bradford took another drink. But I needed to hear your voice. You know? Just needed to know someone gave a shit. I give a shit. You're my brother. Marcus's voice was hard. You want me to come home? I can take emergency leave. No, I'm fine. Really. Bradford trailed off. On his security system app, he could see Veronica loading suitcases into her car. Leaving. Walking away from 4 years like they were nothing. Brad. I'm good, Marcus. Go back to saving the world. I'll save myself. They talked for another 20 minutes. Marcus trying to offer support, Bradford deflecting with dark humor. When they hung up, Bradford sat in his study and finished the scotch. He should have felt devastated. Broken. Instead, he felt nothing. Just cold, clear calculation. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. Chapter 3. Checkmate. 3 days passed in a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and carefully constructed public statements. Stratagem Studios' PR team spun the story. VP of Marketing Veronica Rubio has departed to pursue other opportunities. We wish her the best in her future endeavors. In reality, Veronica was staying at the Four Seasons, calling Bradford every 6 hours, alternating between begging for reconciliation and threatening legal warfare. Her attorney, some shark from downtown, was already arguing that the prenup was invalid, that she deserved half of everything. Bradford met with Glenn Suarez every morning. The divorce attorney was methodical, experienced, and expensive. Mr. DeLeon, with the evidence you have, this is open and shut. She violated the infidelity clause. She gets nothing. Good, Bradford said. But the victories felt hollow. At work, Kendrick tried to keep him distracted. Boss, the Shadow Protocol beta testers are loving the new psychological warfare mechanics. We're talking Game of the Year material. Bradford nodded, reading investor reports without really seeing them. The words blurred together. His mind kept drifting back to Veronica's face when Rico touched her, the sound of her laughter, the way she'd looked at Bradford like he was an obstacle, not a husband. On the 4th day, Rico Strong called his cell phone. Bradford? We should talk. Bradford was at his desk, reviewing code. We have nothing to discuss. See, that's where you're wrong. Rico's voice had an edge now, desperation creeping in. Your wife told me some interesting things about Stratagem Studios. About the military contracts, the government NDAs. And I'm thinking, if certain information went public, are you threatening me? Bradford's voice stayed calm. I'm offering a negotiation. You drop the divorce, give Veronica what she deserves, and I keep my mouth shut about your companies. Let's call them ethical gray areas. Bradford almost admired it. Almost. You mean the contracts that are public record? The military training software that's been featured in Defense Weekly? That's your leverage? Silence. Or maybe you mean the classified projects, the ones I'd never tell Veronica about because I actually respect operational security? Bradford continued. Did she tell you she had access to sensitive information? Because she lied. She had an office, a title, and zero security clearance. Fuck you, Rico spat. You think you're so smart. I am smart. Smart enough to know you're bluffing because the SEC is closing in and you need money. Smart enough to have every conversation with Veronica recorded from the day I suspected something. Smart enough to have already sent evidence of your fraud to federal investigators. The line went dead. Bradford sat back, satisfied. He'd been bluffing about the federal investigators, mostly. But Rico didn't know that. That evening, Bradford went home for the first time since the confrontation. The house felt different, smaller somehow. Veronica's things were gone. Her clothes, her art, her presence. The bedroom smelled like industrial cleaner. He'd hired a service to deep clean everything, but still couldn't bring himself to sleep there. He was setting up the guest room when his doorbell rang at 9:47 p.m. Through the security camera, he saw Rico Strong standing on his porch, swaying slightly. Drunk. Bradford almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. He opened the door with the chain still engaged. Rico, it's late. We need to talk. Rico's eyes were bloodshot, his expensive suit wrinkled. Face to face. Man to man. We have nothing to discuss. Please. The word came out broken. I'm not a bad guy. I made mistakes. But Veronica and we're in love. Real love. You can't just destroy that. Against his better judgment, Bradford opened the door. Rico stumbled inside, and Bradford caught a whiff of whiskey and desperation. Rico, you should go home. Sleep this off. I can't go home. The feds froze my accounts. My lawyers abandoned me. My company's bankrupt. Rico grabbed Bradford's arm. Veronica is all I have left. And you're taking her from me. I didn't take her. She made a choice. Because you drove her away. Rico's voice rose. You and your perfect life and your perfect company. You have everything, and you can't even appreciate it. I appreciated my wife. Until she fucked you. Rico's fist came fast, but Bradford had been expecting it. He'd been expecting it since Rico walked in. Years of training with Marcus kicked in, dodge, redirect, control. Rico was bigger, but Bradford was sober and motivated. The fight spilled into the living room. Rico swung wildly, breaking a lamp, knocking over furniture. Bradford stayed defensive, trying to de-escalate. Rico, stop. This doesn't solve anything. It makes me feel better. Rico charged, and Bradford sidestepped. Rico crashed into the coffee table. For a moment, he just lay there, breathing hard. Then he stood up, and Bradford saw the knife. A kitchen knife, one of Veronica's expensive German steel set. Rico must have grabbed it on the way in. The blade caught the light, 8 inches of polished death. Rico, put that down. Bradford's voice was steady, but his heart hammered. This has gone far enough. Far enough? You ruined my life. You took everything from me. Rico advanced, knife extended. I had a plan. Veronica and I were going to start over. Your money, new identities, fucking paradise. But you had to play detective. Bradford backed toward the stairs. So what's the plan now? Kill me? That's your solution? It's a start. Rico lunged. Bradford grabbed a throw pillow, ridiculous, useless, and tried to block. The knife sliced through fabric and into his arm. Pain exploded, hot and sharp. Bradford stumbled backward, hitting the stairs. Rico came after him, and Bradford kicked hard, catching him in the knee. Rico howled, but didn't stop. They crashed up the stairs together, a tangle of violence and desperation. Bradford's training meant nothing against a knife. He needed distance, needed space, needed the bathroom. Bradford threw himself through the door and tried to slam it, but Rico was right behind him. They grappled in the small space, crashing against the sink, the mirror. The knife found Bradford's chest. Once, twice, 3 times. Each strike was fire and ice, pain beyond description. He tried to push Rico away, but his hands were slippery with blood. His own blood. So much blood. Rico, stop. The words came out weak. Rico didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The knife rose and fell. 4, 5, 6 times. Bradford's ribs cracked. His lung punctured. He felt his body shutting down, system by system, like code compiling errors. He collapsed against the bathtub, sliding down into the white porcelain. The bathroom spun. Rico stood over him, chest heaving, covered in blood. Fuck, Rico whispered. Fuck, fuck, fuck. The bathroom door opened. Veronica stood there, and for one insane moment, Bradford thought she'd come to help. To save him. To be the woman he'd married. Instead, she smiled. Is he dead? She asked casually. Not yet. Rico's voice shook. Jesus, Veronica, I didn't mean to. Shut up. She walked closer, pulled out her phone. He's still breathing. You need to finish. Bradford tried to speak, but blood filled his mouth. He watched Veronica, his wife, the woman he'd loved, take photos of him dying. Flash after flash, documenting his murder like it was a vacation snapshot. She was laughing. This is perfect, she said. No prenup for dead husbands. I get everything. The house, the company, all of it. Rico stabbed him again. 7, 8, 9. Bradford's vision darkened at the edges. His phone was in his pocket. Could he reach it? His fingers wouldn't work. Nothing worked. How many times? Rico sounded sick. Make sure, Veronica said. I'll stage the scene. Make it look like a home invasion. 10, 11, 12. Bradford's body wouldn't respond anymore. He was floating, separate from the meat being destroyed in his bathtub. Some distant part of his brain recognized hypovolemic shock, neurogenic collapse, cardiac arrest imminent. 13, 14, 15. Veronica was rummaging through drawers now, probably looking for valuables to make the scene believable. Rico stood over Bradford, knife dripping. We need to go, Rico said. Before someone comes. No one's coming. His brother's deployed. His friends think he's heartbroken. No one will check on him for days. Veronica looked down at Bradford, and her expression was almost fond. Goodbye, Bradford. Thanks for the inheritance. 16, 17. Rico stabbed him twice more, insurance. Then they left, turning off the bathroom light, closing the door. Bradford lay in the dark, drowning in his own blood. Each breath was agony. Each heartbeat was a countdown. He should have been afraid. Should have been thinking about mortality, regret, unfinished business. Instead, his thoughts crystallized around one burning truth. They can't win. His fingers, numb, useless, found his phone. Smearing blood across the screen, barely able to see, he managed to swipe it unlocked. Voice activation. He'd set it up for hands-free gaming tests. Call. Marcus. The phone rang. Once. Twice. Bradford's consciousness was fading, a tide going out. This was his last roll of the dice, his final gambit. Brad. It's 3 in the morning. Brother. The word came out as a whisper. Bradford tasted copper. Darkness. Black sight them. What? Brad? I can't hear you. Black sight them. Each word cost him everything. No bodies. No evidence. Make them vanish forever. The phone slipped from his hand, clattering into the blood pool. Marcus's voice was saying something, urgent and afraid, but Bradford couldn't hear anymore. His last thought before the darkness took him. Checkmate. Chapter 4, Resurrection. Marcus De Leon had killed 47 men in his career with Delta Force. Some with bullets. Some with blades. Some with his bare hands in situations where no evidence could exist. None of them haunted him like the sound of his brother dying over a phone line. He was wheels up from Fort Bragg within 2 hours of that call. Protocol be damned, mission parameters be damned, the entire chain of command be damned. His commanding officer took one look at his face and said, "How long do you need?" "However long it takes," Marcus said. The flight from North Carolina to Seattle was 5 hours of screaming silence. Marcus tried Bradford's phone 83 times. No answer. He called Bradford's friend Kendrick, who confirmed Bradford hadn't come to work. He called the house line. Nothing. By the time Marcus kicked in Bradford's front door at 11:23 a.m. Pacific time, he was imagining the worst. The worst didn't prepare him for what he found. The house looked normal from the outside. Expensive, pristine. The kind of place successful people lived successful lives. Inside was a different story. Furniture overturned. Blood on the carpet, smeared on the walls. A trail leading upstairs like something had been dragged. Marcus moved through the house with his sidearm drawn. Technically illegal since he wasn't on active duty, but Marcus had stopped caring about legality the moment Bradford whispered blacks sight them. The blood trail led to the master bathroom. Bradford was in the bathtub, pale as a corpse, soaked in dried blood. For one terrible moment, Marcus thought he was too late. Then he saw his brother's chest rise. Barely, weakly, but rise. "Medic!" Marcus shouted into his phone, already dialing 911. "I need a bus at," he caught himself. Giving his location to emergency services meant police, questions, paperwork. It meant the people who did this might get lawyers instead of what they deserved. Marcus had a better idea. He called a number he shouldn't have had. That didn't officially exist. "This is De Leon, serial number Delta 74 November Zulu. I need an off-books extraction and medical support. Seattle. Civilian. Family. Stand by." While he waited, Marcus checked Bradford's vitals. Thready pulse, shallow breathing, multiple stab wounds. He counted 17. Jesus Christ. Punctured lung, possible cardiac damage. Bradford should have been dead hours ago. But Bradford was alive. Barely, impossibly alive. Extraction inbound, 15 minutes. Medic en route. What's the situation? Attempted homicide. Victim needs immediate surgical intervention. And I need a clean scene. Understood. Anything else? Marcus looked at his brother, this brilliant man who designed games and built companies and never hurt anyone, bleeding out in a bathtub because his wife wanted him dead. "Yeah," Marcus said. "I need a black site ready. 2 subjects. Extended interrogation parameters. And I need it yesterday. That's above my authorization level. Then get someone with authorization. Because this is happening with or without official sanction, and you'd prefer it happened inside the system." 10 minutes later, a black SUV pulled up. No plates, no markings. A woman emerged, Dr. Kathy Howe, call sign Lifeline, a military surgeon who specialized in battlefield trauma and never asked questions. She took one look at Bradford and whistled. "Holy shit. How is he still alive? He's a De Leon. We're stubborn." Kathy went to work with equipment that shouldn't have existed outside a combat zone. Field transfusions, emergency stabilization, a portable ventilator. "He needs a hospital. He needs to disappear," Marcus corrected. "Can you keep him alive without official records?" "I can keep him alive. Officially, he was never here." They loaded Bradford into the SUV, Kathy managing his vitals in the back. Marcus stayed behind, staring at the bathroom that had almost become his brother's grave. His phone buzzed. "Kendrick Hawkins." "Marcus? Is Bradford okay?" "I went by his house. The door was open. He's in bad shape. Stabbed. Multiple times. I have him. Jesus. I'm calling the police." "No police." Marcus's voice went flat. "You understand? No police, no hospitals, no official anything. If anyone asks, you haven't seen Bradford or me. But, Kendrick, I know you're his friend. Prove it. Keep your mouth shut for 48 hours. That's all I need." Silence. "Then, what are you going to do?" "Whatever it takes." After Kendrick hung up, Marcus started searching the house. Bradford was meticulous. If he suspected something, he'd have documented it. Marcus found the manila envelope in Bradford's study, surveillance photos, detailed reports, evidence of an affair between Veronica and a man named Rico Strong. Marcus studied Rico's photo. Tall, athletic, the kind of asshole who thought his good looks and money made him untouchable. Rico Strong was about to learn what untouchable really meant. Marcus called his contact again. "I need full workups on 2 subjects. Veronica De Leon, formerly Veronica Rubio, and Rico Strong. Last known locations, financials, communication records, everything. Already on it. We found security footage from your brother's neighborhood. Black Mercedes, registered to Rico Strong, arrived at 9:34 p.m. Veronica De Leon's vehicle arrived at 9:51 p.m. Both left at 10:43 p.m. After the attack, Marcus said quietly, "Gets better. We pulled traffic camera footage. They went to a motel off Highway 99. The Cascade Inn. Paid cash for 2 rooms under fake names. They're still there." Marcus checked his watch. 1:15 p.m. "How many exits?" 2. Front and back. "But Marcus, if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, This needs to be clean. No witnesses, no evidence, no blowback. I'm Delta Force. Clean is what I do. This isn't a war zone. These are American citizens on American soil. They tried to murder my brother in his own home. They stabbed him 17 times and left him to die. Marcus's voice could have cut steel. I don't give a fuck about their citizenship. Then make it disappear. All of it. Because if this goes sideways, you're on your own. I've always been on my own. Marcus spent the next 2 hours preparing. First, he visited Bradford at the Safe House, a nondescript building in industrial district that officially didn't exist. Kathy had Bradford stable, intubated, hooked to machines that beeped reassuringly. He'll make it, she said. But he's going to need weeks of recovery. And probably therapy. This level of trauma. He's strong, Marcus said, taking his brother's hand. Bradford's fingers were cold, lifeless. He'll come back from this. Will he want to? Kathy asked quietly. After what his wife did. Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he leaned close to Bradford's ear. I've got them, brother. I've got both of them. And I'm going to make this right. I promise. Bradford didn't respond. But on the heart monitor, his rhythm strengthened, just for a moment. Marcus left the safe house and assembled his kit. Zip ties, duct tape, burner phones, a van with stolen plates, chloroform, and his service weapon. Everything he needed for an unsanctioned extraction on American soil. A felony that would end his career and probably land him in Leavenworth. He didn't care. At 6:47 p.m., Marcus sat in the van outside the Cascade Inn, watching Rico and Veronica's rooms. Room 12 and Room 14, separated by a shared wall. Sloppy. Predictable. He saw Veronica through the window, pacing and talking on her phone. Saw Rico leave to buy cigarettes from the vending machine. These people who'd stabbed his brother 17 times were just living, carrying on like nothing happened. Marcus waited until 11 p.m., when the parking lot was empty and the night clerk was half asleep. He approached Rico's room first, picking the lock in 8 seconds flat. Rico was watching TV, eating takeout, drinking beer. He looked up when Marcus entered. Who the fuck? Marcus moved faster than Rico could process. Chloroform-soaked rag over the mouth and nose. Arm locked around the throat, pressure on the carotid. Rico struggled for 20 seconds, then went limp. Marcus zip-tied his wrists and ankles, duct-taped his mouth, and dragged him to the van. One down. Veronica was harder. She was jumpy, paranoid, kept looking at her phone. Marcus had to wait until she went to the bathroom, then breached the door and closed the distance before she could scream. She fought harder than Rico. Nails, teeth, pure, desperate violence. But Marcus had subdued trained enemy combatants. Veronica didn't stand a chance. Within minutes, both were unconscious in the back of his van, hooded and restrained. Marcus wiped down the rooms, took their phones and wallets, and removed every trace of their existence. The Cascade Inn's security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned between 11:17 p.m. and 11:43 p.m. The desk clerk would remember nothing, if he was even awake. Rico Strong and Veronica DeLeon simply vanished. Marcus drove north, away from Seattle, away from civilization. His phone GPS was off, his route randomized. After 2 hours, he turned onto a logging road that existed on no maps, following coordinates he'd memorized. The black site was a decommissioned CIA facility from the Cold War, officially closed and demolished. Unofficially, it remained operational for situations that required absolute deniability. Men in tactical gear met him at the gates. No names, no ranks, no badges. Just professionals doing illegal work for reasons they didn't question. 2 subjects, Marcus said. Extended stay. Full isolation. No contact with outside world. Duration. Marcus looked at the van, where Rico and Veronica were starting to wake up, muffled sounds of confusion and fear. He thought of Bradford in that bathtub, pale and broken. However long it takes, Marcus said. Chapter 5, The Black Site. Veronica woke in darkness. Not the regular darkness of night or closed eyes, but absolute void. Thick, pressing, suffocating. She tried to move and realized she couldn't. Her wrists were bound behind her back, ankles secured to a chair. A hood covered her head, rough fabric that smelled like motor oil and fear. Hello. Her voice cracked. Is anyone there? No response. Panic hit her like ice water. The last thing she remembered was the motel room, scrolling through Bradford's bank accounts, planning how she'd access his money once he was declared dead. Then the door breaking open, a figure in black, a struggle. "Hello," she screamed now, thrashing against the restraints. "Let me go? This is kidnapping. I'll have you arrested." Still nothing. Time lost meaning. Veronica sat in that darkness, that silence, feeling her sanity fray at the edges. Was it minutes or hours? She couldn't tell, couldn't think. Her mind kept circling back to Bradford in the bathtub, Rico's knife rising and falling, the blood everywhere. "Good evening, Mrs. De Leon." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, amplified through hidden speakers. Male, calm, utterly devoid of emotion. "Who are you?" Veronica demanded. "Where am I? I want a lawyer." "I'm afraid that's not possible. I have rights. You can't just. You attempted to murder your husband. You and your accomplice stabbed Bradford De Leon 17 times and left him to die." The voice remained conversational. "Did you think there wouldn't be consequences?" Veronica's blood turned to ice. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you do. You took photos. Should I show them to you?" A screen flickered to life in front of her. She could see the glow even through the hood. When someone removed it, Veronica blinked against the sudden light. She was in a concrete room, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, completely empty except for her chair and the screen mounted on the wall. The screen displayed a photo. Bradford in the bathtub, his shirt soaked red, his face pale and slack. Her photo. From her phone. That's... Veronica's mind raced. That was Rico. I didn't stab him. I just watched. I didn't know Rico was going to. You told him to finish. You laughed while photographing your dying husband. You planned to inherit his estate after making his murder look like a home invasion. The voice recited facts like reading a grocery list. "Would you like to revise your statement?" "Where's Bradford?" Veronica asked suddenly. Did he? Bradford De Leon is alive. Relief flooded through her, followed immediately by terror. If Bradford was alive, he could testify. He could destroy her. "I need to see him. I need to explain. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. You won't be seeing anyone. Ever again." The finality in those words made Veronica's bladder release, warm urine soaking her pants. Please, I'll confess. I'll tell the police everything. Rico forced me to help him. I was scared. No police. No lawyers. No due process." The voice had a new edge now. "You've been disappeared, Mrs. De Leon. As far as the world knows, you ran off with your boyfriend, spent your husband's money, and vanished into witness protection or Mexico or a shallow grave. No one is looking for you. No one cares." "That's not true. My friends, my family. Your mother died when you were 9. Your father has dementia and doesn't remember you. You have no siblings. Your friends are business associates who've already moved on." The voice paused. "You chose to be alone, Veronica. You chose to betray the one person who loved you. Now you get to live with that choice." The screen changed, showing Rico in an identical room. He was screaming, thrashing, his face contorted with rage and fear. "What are you going to do to us?" Veronica whispered. "That depends on you." In another room, Marcus watched the monitors. Veronica on one screen, Rico on another, both isolated, both terrified. This was psychological warfare, his specialty. Cyrus Lane stood beside him, a former CIA interrogator who'd worked with Marcus in Afghanistan. Cyrus had retired officially, but he still consulted on off-book projects. Like this one. "She's breaking already," Cyrus noted. "The boyfriend's going to be harder. Classic narcissist. He'll deny everything." "Good," Marcus said. "I want him to fight." "Why?" "Because when he finally admits what he did, when he begs for mercy, it'll mean something." Cyrus studied Marcus's face. "This is personal for you. That's my brother they tried to kill." "I know. That's why I'm concerned." Cyrus pulled up another monitor, showing Bradford in the medical bay, still unconscious, still fighting. "Revenge is a luxury, Marcus. And in our line of work, luxuries get people killed. This isn't revenge. It's justice. Justice happens in courtrooms. Courtrooms let guilty people walk free on technicalities." Marcus's jaw clenched. Bradford's wife took photos of him dying. 17 stab wounds. And if we'd called the police, if we'd played by the rules, what would have happened? She'd have hired expensive lawyers, claimed domestic abuse, self-defense, temporary insanity. Rico would have made bail, fled the country, disappeared. And Bradford would have spent years in depositions and trials, reliving his trauma while his attempted murderers got book deals. So instead, you're going to what? Torture them. I'm going to make them understand what they did. Make them feel it. And then, Marcus trailed off. And then I'll decide if they deserve to live. Cyrus was quiet for a long moment. You know this is illegal. Everything we're doing here. If this gets out, it won't get out. No bodies, no evidence, no witnesses. That's what Bradford asked for. Bradford was dying when he asked for that. Are you sure he'd want this if he was conscious? Marcus looked at his brother on the monitor. Bradford had been moved to a medical bed, hooked to machines, still pale but stable. He'd always been the good one, the moral one, the one who followed rules and believed in systems. And those systems had failed him. Bradford designed games about asymmetric warfare, Marcus said finally. Games where traditional rules don't apply, where you have to outthink your enemies, turn their advantages into weaknesses. He understood that sometimes, to win, you have to play a different game. This isn't a game. No, Marcus agreed. It's survival. Chapter 6, Confession. Rico broke first. It took 36 hours of isolation, sleep deprivation, and carefully calibrated psychological pressure. Marcus visited him exactly once, materializing in his cell like a ghost. Rico Strong, age 42, 2 ex-wives, 3 failed businesses, $8 million in SEC fraud. Marcus read from a tablet. Currently under federal investigation. Formerly dating Veronica De Leon. You stabbed her husband 17 times. I want a lawyer, Rico said, his voice hoarse from screaming. This is illegal detention. You're not being detained. You're being disappeared. Marcus set down the tablet. No one knows you're here. Your car was found in Canada with your wallet and phone inside. Security footage shows you crossing the border. As far as the FBI is concerned, you're a fugitive. That's bullshit. I didn't go to Canada. Your digital footprint says otherwise. Credit cards, cell towers, security cameras, all fabricated, but admissible in court. If you ever make it to court. Marcus leaned forward. Want to know something funny? Bradford didn't die. He's alive, conscious, recovering, and very, very angry. Rico's face went white. He's alive? You stabbed a man 17 times, and he survived. Does that make you feel incompetent? Like you can't even kill someone properly? I didn't mean to. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Then how was it supposed to happen? Marcus asked softly. Walk me through your plan, Rico. Help me understand how you ended up stabbing my brother 17 times. And Rico talked. It spilled out of him like poison from a wound. Veronica had approached him 6 months ago, not at a restaurant like Bradford thought, but at one of his development projects. She'd pitched herself as an opportunity. Marry her, access Bradford's money, steal the company's IP, and sell it to foreign competitors. It was supposed to be clean, Rico said desperately. Just corporate espionage. Insider trading. Veronica would divorce him. We'd split the money. Everyone would walk away. So what changed? Bradford changed. He hired that fucking detective, started documenting everything. Veronica got scared. She said if Bradford divorced her with the prenup, she'd get nothing. And I'd already spent money I didn't have, made promises to investors based on what she told me. We were trapped. So you decided to kill him. No, that wasn't the plan. I just want to talk to him that night, try to negotiate, figure something out. But he was so fucking smug, so cold. And I was drunk, and angry, and Rico's voice broke. It just happened. 17 times doesn't just happen, Marcus said. That's not a crime of passion. That's an execution. Veronica told me to keep going. She said if he survived, we'd both go to prison. She laughed, took those photos like it was nothing. Rico was crying now, mascara of cowardice running down his face. I'm not a killer. I'm not that guy. You are that guy, Marcus said. You were just never caught before. He left Rico sobbing in his cell, returned to the monitoring room where Cyrus waited. Well, Cyrus asked. He confessed everything. Premeditated murder for financial gain. Veronica was the mastermind. And now, Marcus looked at Veronica's monitor. She was pacing her cell, talking to herself, unraveling. He could keep her here forever, let her rot in isolation until her mind broke completely. It would be justice, karmic, poetic, perfect. But it wouldn't be enough. Bring her to the interrogation room, Marcus said. It's time she met someone. Veronica was hooded again, dragged down corridors that echoed, shoved into a chair in a cold room. When the hood came off, she saw a man sitting across from her. Not her captor. Someone else. Someone familiar. Bradford. No, Veronica whispered. You're dead. You're supposed to be dead. Disappointed? Bradford's voice was weak, rough from intubation, but his eyes were clear and cold. Sorry to ruin your inheritance. He looked terrible. Pale, thin, bandaged, moving like every breath hurt. But he was alive. Impossibly, stubbornly alive. Bradford, please, you have to understand. Veronica lunged forward, but Chain stopped her short. I never wanted you hurt. Rico went crazy. I tried to stop him. You told him to keep stabbing. Bradford pulled out her phone, evidence-bagged, preserved. You have 17 photos on here. Time-stamped, geotagged, showing my attempted murder. Should we go through them together? I was in shock. I didn't know what I was doing. You knew exactly what you were doing. You planned this with Rico for months. Corporate espionage, identity theft, murder. Bradford's voice never rose, never wavered. You married me to steal from me. When that failed, you tried to kill me. The only thing you didn't plan for was me surviving. Veronica saw it then. No mercy in his eyes, no forgiveness, no love. Just calculation. She'd spent 4 years with this man and never realized how dangerous he could be. What are you going to do to me? She asked quietly. Bradford looked at Marcus, who'd been standing in the shadows. That's not my decision. Then whose decision is it? Mine, Marcus said, stepping forward. See, here's the problem. If we turn you over to police, you get lawyers, trials, maybe 20 years with parole. If we kill you, it's murder, even if you deserve it. So we need a third option. What kind of option? The kind where you disappear completely. New identity, new life, somewhere very far from here. You'll work off your debt to society in ways society will never know about. Black Ops support, intelligence gathering, whatever we need. You'll never be free, but you'll be alive. Veronica's mind raced. And if I refuse? Then you don't leave this room, Marcus said simply. That's not a choice. That's slavery. You gave up the right to choose when you tried to murder my brother. Marcus's voice went hard. This is mercy, Veronica. Take it or leave it. She looked at Bradford, searching for any softness, any weakness. But he just stared back, the man she'd underestimated, the man she'd tried to kill, the man who'd somehow won. I'll take it, Veronica whispered. Good. Marcus gestured, and guards appeared. You'll be transported to a facility. You'll never see America again. You'll never contact anyone from your old life. As far as the world knows, Veronica De Leon doesn't exist anymore. As they dragged her away, Veronica looked back at Bradford one last time. I'm sorry, she said. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Bradford didn't respond. He just watched her disappear, the woman he'd loved becoming a ghost. When she was gone, he turned to Marcus. And Rico. He gets the same deal. Different location, different work. They'll never see each other again. Will they suffer? Marcus considered the question. They'll live with what they did. Every day, for the rest of their lives. That's its own kind of suffering. Bradford nodded slowly. It wasn't the revenge he'd imagined when he whispered blacks cite them while dying. But it was justice, imperfect, illegal, but real. Thank you, Bradford said to his brother. For saving me. For this. You'd do the same for me. I'd try. Bradford smiled for the first time in weeks. But you're better at this than I am. Different skill sets, Marcus said. You build worlds. I burn them down. They stood together in that black site, two brothers who'd taken the law into their own hands and made the guilty pay. It wasn't legal. It wasn't clean. But it was done. Chapter 7, The Reckoning. 3 months later, Bradford stood in his office at Stratagem Studios, looking out at Seattle's skyline. His body had healed, mostly. 17 scars, hidden under expensive shirts. A slight limp when the weather changed. Nightmares that woke him screaming. But he was alive. Shadow Protocol launched to critical acclaim and commercial success, becoming the best-selling strategy game of the year. Bradford's net worth tripled. Investors called him a genius. Gaming magazines put him on covers with headlines like The Architect of Victory. None of them knew the real story. Kendrick appeared in his doorway. Boss, you got a minute? Always. Kendrick closed the door, his expression serious. The police came by yesterday, asking about Veronica and Rico Strong. Apparently, they've been missing for 3 months, and you're a person of interest. Bradford felt his pulse quicken but kept his face neutral. What did you tell them? That Veronica left you for Rico, that you haven't seen either of them since, that you've been focused on work and recovering from the divorce. Kendrick paused. They seemed satisfied. But Brad, if there's something I should know. There isn't. The lie came easily now. Veronica made her choice. She and Rico are probably in Mexico, spending money she stole from our accounts. I've moved on. Kendrick studied him for a long moment. You're different, you know. Harder. Colder. Whatever happened these past few months, it changed you. Almost dying does that. Did you almost die? Kendrick asked quietly. Because you disappeared for 2 weeks after Veronica left. No calls, no emails, just gone. And when you came back, you looked like you'd been through hell. Bradford met his friend's eyes. I had the flu. Spent 2 weeks in bed, hating life. That's all. Right? The flu. That left you with a limp and that scar on your neck. Bradford's hand instinctively went to the scar, the one from Rico's knife, the one he'd told people was from a car accident. Kendrick, I appreciate your concern. But I'm fine. The company's thriving. I'm healthy. Veronica's gone. Life is good. Is it? Kendrick didn't look convinced. Because you work 16-hour days. You don't date. You barely sleep. You're building an empire, sure, but you're doing it alone. Alone is safer, Bradford said before he could stop himself. Jesus, Brad. She fucked you up worse than I thought. If only Kendrick knew. If only anyone knew. After Kendrick left, Bradford pulled up a secure messaging app, encrypted, untraceable, the kind military contractors used. One new message from Marcus. Package 1 performing adequately. Package 2 struggling with adjustment. Both remain contained. Bradford translated. Veronica was doing the work required of her, probably intelligence analysis or logistics support in some Black Ops facility. Rico was having a harder time, but neither had escaped or compromised operational security. They were paying their debt. Forever. Bradford typed a response. Acknowledged. Status unchanged. Then he deleted the app, the message, all evidence it had ever existed. That evening, Bradford drove to a bar in Georgetown, far from downtown, far from anyone who knew him. He sat in a corner booth, drinking whiskey, watching strangers live normal lives. A woman approached. Is this seat taken? She was beautiful, blonde, maybe 30, with kind eyes. Bradford almost said yes. The seat was taken. He wanted to be alone. But something in her smile reminded him of who he used to be, before betrayal and blood. It's all yours, he said. Her name was Flora Holmes, and she was a freelance journalist covering the Seattle tech scene. They talked for an hour, about games, about business, about life. She laughed at his jokes. He laughed at hers. It felt normal, almost real. Can I see you again? Flora asked as the night wound down. Bradford wanted to say no. Wanted to stay isolated, protected, alone where no one could hurt him. But he heard Kendrick's voice. Alone is safer. Jesus, Brad. She fucked you up worse than I thought. Yes, Bradford said. I'd like that. They exchanged numbers. Flora left. Bradford sat in the booth, staring at her contact information, wondering if he could ever trust someone again. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Mr. DeLeon, this is Detective Cyrus Lane with Seattle PD. We'd like to ask you some questions about Veronica DeLeon and Rico Strong. When would be a good time? Bradford's blood ran cold. Cyrus Lane, the CIA interrogator who'd helped Marcus at the Black site. He was using his real identity now, posing as a detective, creating a paper trail. This was a warning. Tomorrow morning, Bradford said calmly. My office, 9 a.m. I'll have my attorney present. Looking forward to it. After he hung up, Bradford called Marcus. Why is Cyrus Lane contacting me as a police detective? Because the real police are asking questions. We needed to control the narrative. Cyrus will interview you, file a report saying you were cooperative but unhelpful, and close the case. Veronica and Rico will officially become cold case runaways. And if someone digs deeper, they won't. We've seeded evidence, credit card transactions in Mexico, social media posts, sightings in South America. We've built an entire alternate timeline of their lives after they left Seattle. If anyone investigates, they'll find a trail that leads nowhere. Bradford should have felt relief. Instead, he felt hollow. How long can we keep this up? Forever, if we're careful. The only weak link is you. Me. You're the victim, the wounded party. If you start acting suspicious, drawing attention, the whole thing unravels. So you need to move on, Bradford. Live your life. Date that woman you met tonight. Yes, I know about her. We're monitoring your security. Build your company. Be successful. Be normal. I don't know if I can be normal anymore. Then fake it, Marcus said. Because the alternative is both of us in federal prison, and Rico and Veronica walking free. Chapter 8. The Detective. The interview with Detective Cyrus Lane went exactly as planned. Bradford sat in his office with Glenn Suarez, his divorce attorney, and answered questions calmly. Mr. DeLeon, when did you last see your wife? Approximately 3 months ago. She was having an affair with Rico Strong. I confronted her. She left, and I haven't seen her since. And you didn't think to report her missing? Why would I? She left voluntarily. She took her clothes, her car, her personal items. She sent me a text saying she was done with our marriage and wanted a fresh start. Bradford showed his phone, a fabricated message from Veronica's number, sent hours after she'd been blacksided. I assumed she ran off with Rico. But you haven't filed for divorce. I hired an attorney. Bradford gestured to Glenn. We've been preparing paperwork. It's complicated, asset division, business interests, the prenuptial agreement. These things take time. Cyrus wrote everything down, playing his role perfectly. And Rico Strong. Did you know him? Only by reputation. Real estate developer, under investigation for fraud. Hardly the kind of person I'd associate with. But your wife associated with him. My wife made many choices I didn't approve of. Bradford's voice hardened. That's why I wanted a divorce. The interview lasted 40 minutes. Cyrus asked standard questions. Bradford gave standard answers. Glenn ensured nothing incriminating was said. When it ended, Cyrus stood and shook Bradford's hand. Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. DeLeon. If we learn anything about your wife's whereabouts, we'll let you know. I appreciate that, Detective. After they left, Glenn turned to Bradford. That was easier than expected. The detective seemed sympathetic. Most cops understand domestic situations. Your wife cheated, you're the victim, case closed. Glenn packed his briefcase. Still, I'd recommend moving forward with the divorce. Abandonment is grounds for dissolution. We can have you legally single within 6 months. Do it, Bradford said. Alone in his office, Bradford pulled up news articles about missing persons in Seattle. Veronica and Rico's names appeared in several. Socialite and developer missing. Foul play suspected. The articles contained photos. Veronica at charity galas, Rico at construction sites, both living their best lives before vanishing. The comments sections were brutal. Probably ran off with embezzled money. Good riddance. Rico Strong was a crook. I feel sorry for the husband. Imagine being cheated on, and then your wife disappears. Poor guy. Bradford should have felt vindicated. Instead, he felt nothing. His phone buzzed. Flora, hey. Still on for dinner Friday? Bradford stared at the message. He could cancel, retreat into isolation, live the rest of his life as a ghost. Or he could try to be human, try to trust, try to move forward. He typed, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Chapter 9, Endgame. 6 months after the attack, Bradford DeLeon stood on the deck of his Lake Washington home, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and blood. He'd rebuilt his life piece by piece. Shadow Protocol had become a franchise, with sequels planned through 2028. Stratagem Studios had expanded into VR, AI, emerging markets. Bradford's personal wealth exceeded $50 million. On paper, he'd won. The divorce was finalized. Veronica declared legally dead after 7 months of absence, her assets reverting to Bradford per the prenuptial agreement. Rico Strong's company was liquidated to pay his debts and legal fees. The SEC investigation closed with no one left to prosecute. The Seattle Police Department officially classified both as endangered missing persons, cases that would never be solved because there was nothing to solve. Cyrus Lane had done his job perfectly. Flora Holmes stood beside Bradford on the deck, her hand in his. They'd been dating for 4 months now, slowly, carefully, but genuinely. She knew about Veronica's affair and disappearance. She didn't know about the rest. You okay? Flora asked. You've been quiet tonight. Just thinking. Bradford squeezed her hand. About how much has changed. Changed for the better, I hope. He considered the question. His body bore 17 scars. His nightmares featured bathtubs and knives, and his wife's laughter. He'd orchestrated the illegal disappearance and lifetime imprisonment of 2 people without trial or due process. But he was alive. He was successful. He was, in some broken way, happy. Yeah, Bradford said. For the better. His phone buzzed. Marcus, calling from wherever Delta Force had sent him this time. Hold that thought, Bradford told Flora, stepping inside for privacy. Marcus, everything okay? Checking in. How are you holding up? I'm good. Really good, actually. Dating someone. Company's thriving. Life is surprisingly normal. Normal is good. Marcus paused. You should know, Package 1 and Package 2 have fully integrated. They're useful assets now. Whatever you were worried about, you can stop. Bradford understood. Veronica and Rico had accepted their new lives, stopped fighting, become compliant. They weren't threats anymore. They were just gone. Thank you, Bradford said quietly. For everything. You're my brother. I'd do it again. Marcus's voice softened. But Brad, promise me something. Promise you'll move on. Let go of what happened. Don't let them poison the rest of your life. I promise. After they hung up, Bradford stood in his study. The room where he'd discovered Veronica's affair, where he'd planned his response, where he'd become someone different. Harder, colder, more dangerous. On his desk sat a chess set, a gift from Flora. The pieces were hand-carved, beautiful, expensive. Bradford set up a game, playing both sides, working through strategies and counter-strategies. He'd always loved chess. The rules, the patterns, the way a single move could change everything. In games, there was order, cause and effect, actions and consequences. In life, things were messier. Bradford moved a bishop, capturing a pawn. Then he swept all the pieces off the board, watching them clatter across his desk. Brad. Flora appeared in the doorway. Everything okay? Yeah. He stood, leaving the scattered pieces. Just finished a game. Who won? Bradford looked at her. This woman who'd brought light back into his world, who didn't know the darkness he'd embraced, who thought he was just a successful game designer recovering from a bad marriage. I did, he said. But it wasn't a fair game. Flora smiled, not understanding. Are your games ever fair? No, Bradford admitted. But they're always honest. You know the rules. You know the stakes. And when you lose, you know exactly why. Sounds lonely. It used to be, Bradford said, taking her hand. It doesn't have to be anymore. They returned to the deck, watching night fall over Lake Washington. Somewhere in the world, Veronica and Rico were living different lives, paying for their crimes in ways no court would ever sanction. Somewhere else, Marcus was protecting people who'd never know his name. And here, Bradford was learning to be human again. The ending wasn't perfect. The good guys hadn't won cleanly. Justice hadn't been served through proper channels. But his enemies had paid. His brother had saved him. And he was still standing. In the game of survival, that was checkmate enough. Epilogue, 2 years later. Bradford DeLeon married Flora Holmes on a beach in Maui, with Kendrick as his best man and Marcus standing beside him in his dress uniform. The wedding was small, intimate, nothing like the spectacle his marriage to Veronica had been. Stratagem Studios had become a billion-dollar company. Shadow Protocol had sold 50 million copies worldwide. Bradford was featured in Forbes, Time, Rolling Stone, a tech visionary who'd overcome personal tragedy to build an empire. No one knew the truth. On their wedding night, Flora looked at Bradford's scars, the 17 marks that would never fade, and asked the question she'd been avoiding for 2 years. What really happened? Bradford could have lied, should have lied, but Flora deserved better than deception. Veronica and Rico tried to kill me. They stabbed me 17 times and left me to die. My brother saved my life and made sure they could never hurt anyone again. That's the truth. Did he kill them? No. But they're gone. Completely. Forever. Bradford met her eyes. Does that make me a monster? Flora was quiet for a long moment. Then she took his hand, pressing it against her heart. It makes you a survivor. And I'm glad you survived. Because otherwise, I'd never have met you. Even knowing what I did. You protected yourself. You made sure they faced consequences. That's not monstrous. That's human. Bradford wanted to believe her. Wanted to think that justice could exist outside courtrooms, that survival justified everything. But late at night, when nightmares woke him, he still saw Rico's knife rising and falling, still heard Veronica's laughter, still felt himself dying in that bathtub. He'd won. He'd survived. He'd built a new life. But victory had cost him something he couldn't name, some piece of innocence, some belief in order and fairness and the fundamental goodness of the world. I love you, Flora whispered. I love you too, Bradford said, and meant it. Because even broken things could still love. Even damaged souls could find happiness. Even men who'd embraced darkness could walk back into the light. Bradford DeLeon had played the game of his life, not the games he designed, but the real game, the one with permanent stakes. And he'd won. Not cleanly, not perfectly, not the way heroes were supposed to win, but he'd won nonetheless. And sometimes that was enough. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see